Hello. Okay. Hello, peoples. This is every time I sit down and talk to a camera. This is weird. This is probably one of the oddest ways I've ever communicated. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about enlightenment and meditation, not in the same way that I did in my last video, which was more of a just a recording of an expression, me talking about a personal experience I had. But this time, I want to talk more conceptually about enlightenment and meditation, and specifically focusing on meditation. I want to address sort of how to be at peace with your thoughts and how to not be in a constant mode of like trying to fight them while you're meditating. And to do that, I'm going to talk about presence, which is also going to relate to enlightenment, which is where I'll begin. So, there is a lot of confusing talk about enlightenment and spiritual awakening because it's viewed as part of a process, which isn't necessarily a wrong thing, but it's better thought of within its own context. And if that's a little confusing, allow me to elaborate. The meaning of enlightenment is sort of what I'm going to be talking about now. And by that, I don't mean the definition of the term enlightenment. I mean sort of what is the personal significance of that thing which the term enlightenment refers to. Spiritually, it's often thought of and interpreted as sort of this sense of connectedness, this awareness of divinity in some regards, or sacredness. And that isn't wrong. It's not exactly right. But enlightenment is one of those things like Zen or God or the universe, the ground of all being, existence. I usually use the term existence when I'm referring to the ultimate reality of that which is. But it's that thing that is sacred and divine that is impossible to conceptualize. It's just, another way to put it might be sort of the nature of I, or I don't know, some other complicated, funny way of phrasing it. But essentially, enlightenment, I like to think of it as understanding of what is, with the simultaneous sort of, actually, no, there's nothing else that really needs to be put with that, because the understanding sort of stands for the feeling that I want to refer to. The feeling of enlightenment is sort of the feeling of a completed puzzle. All the pieces are in place in the proper order to just perfectly view the picture that it makes. If I wanted to describe it in sort of an action sense, imagine you're in a room and there's that which you're consciously aware of, that which you're innately aware of, but you may not be consciously aware of, and that which you are not at all aware of consciously. And sort of the second and the third sort of sets of that information, or whatever you want to refer to, maybe the settings, the environment, the energies that are feeling or feelable, and that can sort of be described as unconsciously aware or intuitively aware. But that which you're consciously aware of, imagine if you're in this dark warehouse and you have a flashlight, and you can point that flashlight at anything. And whatever you point your flashlight at, that's like directing your conscious awareness. It's moving your particular perception at a certain thing. And we do this all the time normally. We do this in varying states of consciousness, and it's pretty much our basic mode of perception. Just turn the awareness and perception towards something, receive the information coming in, and then interpret that which you are sort of receiving. Enlightenment is sort of not just making the mental connection of, having looked at everything in the rooms, and so now you know approximately where everything in the room is. But enlightenment is when you may still have the flashlight, but somebody flips a switch and all of the lights in the entire warehouse come on and everything is illuminated. There is not a shadow anywhere. That is sort of the, I guess, action that I would use to analogously describe enlightenment. But the feeling of it, it's not as if you are seeing everything in the same sense that you saw things when you were pointing the flashlight at whatever you were aware of or looking at. Because like even when the lights in the warehouse are on, even when everything is illuminated, in order to perceive something, you still have to turn your conscious attention towards it. And so it's not as if all of a sudden everything comes into your mind and you know everything in the sense of like omniscience in how they describe the sort of Judeo-Christian God. It's more of a sense of a lack of effort to see that which is already there. It's as if now that all of the lights are on, you can not only see with your peripheral vision, but you can look at something without having to first illuminate it with your own flashlight, because it's already illuminated. You can already see it, take it in, and process it as it is. It's illuminated sort of by the setting itself. And it's this sort of given nature that really makes enlightenment particularly meaningful and significant from regular states of conscious understanding, especially conceptual understanding. Because what I'm doing right now is I'm basically trying to conceptualize what I know intuitively so that I can translate it into a codified abstraction using language in order to relate to you and express this information to you so that you can then receive it, perceive it, and interpret it. And hopefully, if I do a good enough job, understand it. But that brings me to my second point, presence, and how presence relating to enlightenment and meditation is really significant for this kind of understanding. So usually when people are talking about meditating, they're talking about being present with what you have sort of in the moment and not dealing with anything outside of that. This sort of sense of time, this in the moment idea, is particularly important because a lot of people, they feel like their thoughts take them out of the present, whether they're thinking about the past or worrying about the future or just wondering something in general. Maybe just a random thought flies into your head and distracts you from just sitting and being at peace. I talked about this in a video before. I once watched a video where a person described meditation as sort of the art of doing nothing. And there are ways to meditate like that, obviously, and ways to meditate for a specific purpose where you're not necessarily doing nothing, but you're doing nothing in a way that will allow you to understand or know something that will then allow you to do something. So if your thoughts are sort of dragging you about, dragging your attention away from what you want your attention to be focused on, what you have to understand is, one, you're not in control of your thoughts. As much as you think that you are not. You can direct thoughts into your own head, but at the same time, the thing that's doing the thinking isn't you, which is sort of one of the principles, the understandings that you have to realize in order to be enlightened. And it's not, in order to be enlightened as in order to gain enlightenment. It's that when you are, fulfilling this criteria list of sufficient and necessary conditions, once all of those are completed, you are equivalent with enlightenment. Your state of consciousness is of an enlightened state because you understand these things. And it's only when we aren't really acting as if we understand these things that we think we're unenlightened. Because that's another aspect about this Eastern idea of this sort of innate divine and sacred understanding. It's more of a constant thing, I'm having trouble conceptualizing it because I'm not of this philosophic tradition, but I've studied it enough that I think I should be able to describe it. Enlightenment is a constant thing. Everybody is always enlightened. You are basically always fulfilling the necessary conditions for your own existence. Regardless of whether or not you are playing a certain role, performing certain actions, holding certain beliefs. The wonderful thing about the innate dualism to our experience is that we are always on some level detached from what we're doing and what we believe. Even if you're Mike Tyson in the middle of a boxing match, or the Flea on stage, the Flea, the drummer for Red Hot Chili Peppers, I really love that band. Even if you're, just some person, some persona doing a thing in a certain way with a certain context or a certain history for that state of being, regardless of what it is, you are enlightened. The only thing that sort of causes people to not realize this is we literally go throughout our lives pretending as if we're not. That's sort of what the Hindus mean when they describe how everybody is God, everybody is a living divinity, sort of, going throughout the world, excuse me, pretending as if you are less sacred than the sky. It seems almost ridiculous to a Western mind, but that's really what the idea of enlightenment is about. It's not just understanding the big picture, but really knowing that every person on this earth is a living divinity. They are the same sacredness that designs flowers. They are the same sacredness that set the sun in the sky and the planets to orbit it. They are the exact same thing. It's all one. That's sort of the point of enlightenment. It's no longer having to illuminate reality yourself, because you know that in just knowing, it is already illuminated. And it is impossible to describe with language, because language it's conceptual. It's an abstract form of basically reflection. The words that we use aren't the same as what they refer to, and we often forget that. We often think that, like our thoughts, if there's something being said, that must mean that there's some truth to the saying of it, in a sort of weird way. If that doesn't make sense, then think about it like this. When you think about the past, are you going back to the past, or are you pulling the past back to the present? When you think about the future, are you going into the future, or are you pulling the future to the present? Are you trying, at least, to collapse time to know now what you either knew before or want to know for the future? Thoughts, it's more like commentary than anything of intrinsic value going on inside your consciousness. Not that thoughts aren't valuable, because I mean their very nature, the mind, this is something from Eastern philosophy that is particularly useful for any Westerners looking to get into meditation or to understand why their thoughts keep going when they're trying to meditate. Your mind is a lot like a mirror. It sees and it reflects. How it relates to behavior, monkey see, monkey do. How it relates to your thoughts, you are constantly bombarded with sensation, reality, and there's no end to the stimulus. There's no end to the things coming in. And so there's a part of your mind literally designed to be the thing that sends things out. This is your persona. This is the who you are. It's your ego. It's who you believe you are. Its entire job is to be your representative. And by you, I'm referring to the divine essence that forms your consciousness and the literal physical form for you to manifest into, so that you can be present in this reality. Is that thing crooked? Oh well. But right, your thoughts, it's not as if you're being distracted by your thoughts. It's that your thoughts are just distractions of attention. I'm trying to word this in a way to where I can refer to the sort of the existential essence of what you are without sort of equating that with your form. And form is really the only way I know how to describe it, because it's also kind of an illusion to think that there is your egoic self, your shadow self, and your higher self. These are different forms of you. They are not necessarily disconnected. They are not necessarily separated. They're just what you are, what you could be, and what you might be. It's really weird to talk about the things that language can't describe. Just so you know, that's like why I'm probably seeming a little confused about how to go about saying this, is because there is no way to say it, but I'm still trying anyway. But maybe I could draw something that could help describe it. So you are here meditating. You have your thoughts, and they're just about. You got, oh wow, you can't see this at all. But you got your head, your body, and words. And these words are just soaring through your perception, in and out of your attention. And then another word that comes in is, dang it, these words are keeping me from peace. And when you give your attention to that and you sort of feed it with your attention, you give it the energy required to sort of actualize its reality. And so that is why, meditating with a clear mind does bring you to peace. It does bring you to a sense of leveled centeredness from which you can refresh yourself and your own mind and really go back to your perception, go back to reality with a different perspective. Is because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to disassociate from your thoughts almost. You want to be distanced from them as if they're not of you, they're not related to you, they don't have anything to do with you. This is if you really, really want to just back out from this form of existence and just meditate and focus on presence, just existence, just the here and the now. What is there that can be stripped away? What is not necessary to here and now? And as you sit there and you think that, the first thing you can do is you can distance yourself from the sensible reality that you're experiencing. Close your eyes to disconnect from sight. Don't pay attention to, taste or smell. Just kind of think of it as things going on. The sounds around you, they're just sounds of your environment. They don't mean anything. It's just another characteristic of the form of your existence. And your thoughts, likewise, are another such characteristic, where because of the circumstances of the form of your existence, there is a certain egoic expression that is more or less constantly happening. When we actually speak and behave and go out and do things in the world, we are consciously, physically expressing our form of existence. When we think, we mull things over in our mind and we feel emotions internally, those are more inward expressions. And the thing about emotions is they're so heavily tied to our essential being, to our experience in general, whether it's physical or non-physical, that our emotions are kind of what ties the metaphysical and the mental to the physical. Not sort of it is the bridge between them, but it is really easy when you sort of study emotions, how they work biologically, how they work psychologically, and how emotions can be equated to energetic influences, how emotions are a sign of the interconnectedness between the physical and the metaphysical. So, you're meditating and you have thoughts. Thoughts are a lot like emotions, except they're a little more mental and metaphysical than physical. Obviously, if you're thinking in words, then you're thinking with language. And language is an abstraction of the physical. It is the sort of codified systematization of sound in a way that allows us to say it is meaningful. Because if you didn't understand a language, if you didn't understand the abstractions used in this production of sound vibration, then none of this would mean anything. It would be the same as if I went, or if I went, that could be a word if clapping was a language. But what you want to do is you want to kind of think about your thoughts in this sense. They're just things going on, and you associate them with meaning. You associate them with being relevant to who and what you are. But in order to get to this sense of presence, this naked existence, what you need to do is you need to distance yourself from it conceptually so that you can feel how you're not actually connected to it. And it's the easiest way to do that is to just listen to your thoughts. In the same sense how I described how sounds are just sort of what's going on in your environment. They're just vibrations carrying through the air of the physical phenomena that are going on in your formal reality. Likewise, your thoughts are just translations from a part of your mind that is constantly activated and just always going until you basically just manage to get it to shut up. Because you can't shut it up yourself. You basically have to get to a state of consciousness at which point it has nothing to say anymore if you don't want to think. But basically, to no longer be distracted by your thoughts, know that you are not really a distinct particular thing. The idea of you it's closer to an illusion than a lie, but it's a practical lie. Who you are is a representation of your form. Your form is not you. If you think you are your body, that's really gonna, complicate things, because I think your body replaces almost all of its cells every 5 to 7 years. So if you're 10 years old, you no longer have any of the cells with which you were born with. I mean, I don't even know if a 5-year-old has all of the cells with which he was born with, but even just as you grow, you ingest material from your external reality, and then you configure that into the matter that makes up your own physical form that you supposedly have control over. And this goes out and does things that you associate your personal history with, because your point of perception is particularly localized within a certain facet of its being. Essentially, identity is an illusion of perception. If you don't want to be bothered by your thoughts, understand that they're not your thoughts. They're just thoughts that you hear. If you want to remain present, understand that you have nowhere else to go but the present. The past is gone. The future is only a probable future. It hasn't even come into being yet. For all intents and purposes, the future is as much of an illusion as your identity is, and as these words are. And so all you're left with is the here and now. And in meditating, what you sort of are supposed to come to realize in the traditional sense of meditation is that the only thing that there ever is the here and now. And so the only thing that you could ever be is the here and now. Regardless of what that is, regardless of what the circumstances imply, regardless of what possibilities may have been, the only thing that is here and now. And so the only thing you can be is here and now. And when you sit and you say, I'm going to do nothing, you close your eyes and you just let your senses run, and you let your mind think, and you let the things that you think are you go on while you remain stationary. This will bring you much closer to enlightenment than trying to align with ideals of your higher self, trying to fulfill a spiritual awakening process. Even though those are valuable, those are very valuable, especially for understanding what is going on in sort of the scheme of things. In order to understand sort of the context of your existence, those things are important. But in order to understand existence itself, all you need to do is be silent and let it speak to you, because I guess what you're supposed to realize is it is what it is. Why? Because. And that's all I have to say. So thank you very much for watching. Subscribe for more if you like. If you appreciated the video, leave a like. If you have any questions or comments, maybe you want to learn something else, or you want a specific video, I'm going to do another dream interpretation video is coming. A guided meditation that I'm going to record shortly after this, I think, is going to be available soon on my website. And also on my website, there's a lot of free content for more things about reality that you can experience. So, see you later. Peace.